With 21 weeks left, I was not going to miss a night. That's all there is. 21 more weeks. That's all there is. We are on Tav Chava base, page 52, the new parak. Mishemes, somebody dies. Miniach Banim Ubanos, he left sons and daughters. If there's enough property around for Habanas Yershu, the sons inherit, for Habanas Yizono, and the daughters get fed. The Chosim Mimulatim, if the property there's not enough money to go around, not enough property to go around, Habanos Yizonu, the daughters get fed. Habanim Yishlu Psachim, the sons have to go beg. In other words, it's going to give a slightly different interpretation, but Yishlu Psachim is where they have to go beg. Because Takanas Chacham made this takana that in a case where there's not enough property, the children, even though the sons are the ones who inherit the Raisa, nevertheless, Rabbana came and said the daughters get supported. Okay, so that's what the halacha is over here. Admon Sebishushan Zochri Psadati is also a Mishnah Ksubas. Does he, just because I'm a male, do I lose out? Gamir said Ronnie is the Admon. I think Admon is correct, but in fact we don't pass him like Admon in this case. Kinimasi is the way to read our Mishnah. Habanas Yozonu. In the case there's not a property, the daughters get supported. Baboni Mishlo Absachim, and the sons go and beg on the doorways. Now the question is, it would seem that that's exactly what the Mishnah said. What's more adding? So one would have to go to all sorts of contortions, but the Escorial manuscript has, instead of Habonim, Yishub Psachim, Habonim Yischaru al Psachim. Yischaru can have one of two meanings. Yischaru can either mean to go around, Schor means to go around and around, or it can mean to go trade. They should take up a trade, they should go get jobs. Whichever way it means, it's an interpretation of the Mishnah. And even though the Mishnah said Yishalu, if you say the Gemara says Yischalu, then the Gemara becomes an interpretation of the Mishnah, and then Kini Masdis is what it means. All over the Yerushalmi, this is the way to read a Mishnah. Rabbi Mishem Rav said, it should be Leilu Ula Elu. What's considered in the Chosim Rubin? What's the definition of enough where the boys inherit and the girls get fed, and there's simultaneously, when there's enough property to go around, that for each one there's Mezorah Shnei Masar Chodesh. There should be enough money to support the girls for 12 months and support the boys for 12 months. If not, if there's only less than that, then the girls get the whatever is there, and the boys have got to beg, okay, or do business. Shmuel said to the Beren Gamliel Berebi, that's according to Gamliel Berebi, so 12 months is enough. It's got to be in the Chosim room is only if there's enough property for them to be sustained until they become 12 and a half, mature adults, or until they get married. That sometimes is the Kula, sometimes is the Chumrah. Problem is if they're almost 12 and a half, so then it's a Kula, because it might be less than 12 months. If they're distant from becoming 12 and a half, then it's a Chumrah, because you need to have property for more than 12 months to sustain them in order that it should be considered the Chosim Merubim. Okay? It's very hot in here, isn't it? This is my mistake. There's one. If someone wants a window open, we could open a window. Okay. Says they asked for a Chirba. Ech Shmaitza mi Rabbi Yochanan. How do you hear this from Rabbi Yochanan? Armalonzi said back to them, I did not hear from this matter. Ella. However, when that was Jidier's Madin Nasr Baroshia Bokum Rabbi Yochanan, that's Rabbi Nasr Baroshia in front of asked for Rabbi Yochanan. What if at the time that the father died, there was enough property for both the boys and the girls to get 12 months worth, and then the property became diminished. The real estate went down in value. So what's the story? Do the boys now stop begging? Have to start begging, or do we say no? Whatever portion they got since they began, we're having a portion. They continue with that portion, despite the fact that now it will peter out within 12 months. So on that, Rabbi Yochanan responded, once they started, they started. In other words, once they started in a manner of division, as opposed to the boys having to relinquish the property to the girls. So that's how they continue, even if the property now becomes diminished in value and will not provide the 12 months per group of progeny as originally anticipated. Now, says more further, top of Chabzaim Rav, Rechina and Machlokas. Chana said, Bushia Basov, Mosen Shnei Masor Chodesh. Concerning this point, one said that you have to have at the end 12, in other words, it always has to be 12 months worth constantly, right? It doesn't matter, he argues the previous Gemara. It doesn't matter that at the beginning there was 12 enough for 12 months for each. No, there has to constantly be enough to project towards the end of 12 months that they can continue to be fed, both the boys and girls simultaneously. If not, if any time within the 12 months you lose that anticipated result, so then that triggers that from now on the money is held in escrow only for the girls, and the boys have to go in that case and beg. Okay? What the other one said, no, even as long as initially at the time, beginning of the period, there was enough for 12 months for each, even if the property became diminished in value later on, nevertheless, once we distributed and did not require the boys to beg, the boys did not have to beg. What if initially there wasn't taka enough to provide sustenance for 12 months for both the boys and the girls, and it should be Vosiru, or the Shater Sol's gear says Vokiru. The property went up in price. In other words, real estate appreciated, and now you would have enough anticipating further, projecting further for the next, say, 10 months. Right? So the children, boys who were hitherto begging, can they cease begging and now say, well, now we have enough property between the two of us, let's split it up, right? Or not. So again, Lo Yashram Le'ele Moser Shneim B'Sol Chodesh, but Hokiru or Osiru, then it went up in price, and now Yesham Moser Le'ele Shneim B'Sol Chodesh. Now there's enough money for the rest of the 12 months for both the boys and the girls. Rabbi Yahya or Avi the Babylonian said, Nishmina Me'adolts are now from here. Imam, the Yisayim Machro, it says that the Yisayim got up and they sold. In other words, they sold the property. They were supposed to provide it to the girls, obviously, but they sold it. They sold the property, despite the fact they're supposed to provide it to the girls. So, Shalai Machro. So, it's theirs, because the underlying ownership is theirs, and therefore, even though they're stinkers, they're louses, they're rotten, private and sole property which should be underleaned to their sisters to support them, nevertheless the sale is a valid and sustained sale.
Are they obligated to give the money to the girl?
No. They're stinkers, but that's the way it is. Okay? So too, therefore, the flip side of this is, Koshke, certainly we should say, Im, Osiru, Okiru, according to the Shatir Zos, that now it appreciates the Achloku. In other words, the boys can come in and say, look, we are begging, even though the money is really ours, because the properties are ours, because Takonis Chachamim, right? That you should get fed. But now that there's enough money for us not to get fed, for now there's enough value in the real estate that we should also have a portion, right? Because from now the trajectory is that it will last for 12 months, and the underlying ownership is ours. So fair is fair, that we should be able to stop working and start living off the land as you do as well. Okay, so they have the right to demand that. Now, what if there was enough money for both the sons and daughters for the next 12 months? But besides that, there was a widow who had to be supported. Now, the widow who had to be supported, she takes precedence both over the sons and the daughters. She always takes precedence. So the daughters, if you give the amount of precedence, it's not going to be enough for the boys left. It's going to be enough for the Amona and the girls, for the widow and girls. So what can the boys say the following? Again, I mean the case. Is enough for 12 months for each. There's also a widow who must be fed. Can the sons say to the daughters, what do you need? You need food for 12 months? Tell you what, we'll guarantee you food for 12 months. Add to the daughters. Take that. That leaves us with 12 months minus what we have to give the Amana. let us worry about that. That should not be your worry. In other words, Apitin, what could happen is that the Amana would take off the top, and then the daughters would take their share, and the sons would have to beg because there's less than 12 months left for them, and therefore all gets put into escrow for the daughters, and they would have to go back. But can they say, we'll square off the deal with that money? You'll get your 12 months, we'll get our 12 months. What we do with the widow is our business. In fact, it might be their own mother they're dealing with, right? So therefore, can they say that? So the Gemara doesn't. The Gemara. Oh yeah, 1 second. Amrei Radu said, let's hear from this that it doesn't work. It should not work. Sorry. The case is the case of Ksubas Bain Dichrin. The Allah is that a case of Ksubas Bain Dichrin where the father guarantees his wife that if she predeceases him, her dowry should go to her heirs, to her sons. So Allah is you only give that if after the regular Ksuba plus the Ksubas Bain Dichrin, there'll still be at least a Moser Dina or a leftover Dina upon which you can perform the ritual obligation of Yerusha D'Oraisa. If there isn't that Moser Dina left over after the 2 transactions of the Ksuv and the Ksubas Bain Dichrin, then you don't do Ksubas Bain Dichrin, right? So the question there is, can the sons of the woman who predeceased her husband say to the son of the woman who died after her husband, we'll put a Moser Dina into the pot. That extra dina which we'll put in the pot, you will divide up as Yerusha D'Oraisa, and then we get the Ksubas Bain Dichrin. In other words, they want to artificially put our Ksubas Bain Dichrin into play, even though the father himself did not leave enough funds for that to have occurred. Can they do that or not? So it says the Gemara, no, they can't. Right? And we don't listen to them. Right? So to here, if they say, listen, we'll take care of the Amana, we don't listen to them. Same principle. In other words, if they want to do something, you say want to do something on the side to increase their monetary benefit in the case, we don't necessarily let them get away with it. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rav Chisda asked like this is the same question we had before. So it's just a repetition, but it gives a different answer. They both had food for 12 months, the sons and the daughters. But they also had a widow they have to feed. The sons and the daughters, all you need is the money for 12 months, food, and we'll take care of the Amana. So what did you say? What Rav Chisda responded to this? Says Rav Chisda responded to this, B'dot Teimar. There we learned, in other words, elsewhere we learned. There has to be food for 12 months. Besides the food to be eaten by a widow. Besides the money to be used as dowry for the daughters. Besides money which is on the lien to pay up a loan which is placed by a document. And have you on besides money which is unbelieved to pay up a loan taken out in front. When it says chutz mikrasa, besides money for the burial of the Amana. So therefore in all these cases we see that all these expenses off the top prevent the halacha of the chassid movie taking place. But if there's enough money for 12 months for each one, the sons and daughters to eat. If, however, there's one of these loans outstanding, which diminishes the estate because of this obligation which is riding on the estate. So in that case, we don't say that that's considered being a chasim merubin. So to here, if you want to, you say, we'll take care of the Amana. No, it doesn't put the category of the chasim merubin, and nevertheless, they must go back while their sisters eat off the fat of the land. Okay? Says the more further, Amona Vanos, Shtayim Shabbos, and Amona and the daughters are both equivalent in that, but that they both get fed from the estates, right? Amana Banim, Shneim Shod. And Amana and the sons, they're both equivalent. Now, I didn't fully understand how they're both equivalent, so I don't know exactly how Amana and sons are both equivalent. I guess they both have equal liens on the dead father's estate. Not sure exactly what it means. Ein Amana Deichel Banim.
Sons of the same of the father.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. No. Ein Amana Deichel Banos. However, Amana can't push off the daughter's food, and for Bonos, the daughters can't push off the Amana's food. What Amana can do is, it's an interesting concept. Sometimes the Amana can push off the daughters, through the daughters, actually, she can push off the sons. In other words, she can't push off the sons by herself. I think what I said a minute ago, I didn't understand. I didn't understand until right now. Now I understand it more fully. When it means that one of the sons are equal, it means that we don't have this concept of giving the property to the Amana and let the sons beg. They divide up 50-50. It's not a question, there's no dichotomy in the Chosim Merubim and the Chosim Muatim. There's no dichotomy when Amana faces daughters who inherited, when Amana faces sons who inherited. Right? There's no requirement to go in 50-50 on the deals, no requirement that the Chosim Merubim and the Chosim Muatim. I mean, there is a requirement to go 50-50 on the estate. There's no definition of the Chosim Merubim and the Chosim Muatim. That doesn't come to play at all. Okay? Now, when it does come to play, however, is when Amana, the widow and daughters combine forces, woe unto the son when the widow and the daughters combine forces, because then the widow by herself cannot compel the son to go back while she takes property. But the widow plus the daughters can. Because once the daughters are in the picture and they're getting property off the top, the Amana comes in with them and gets property off the top as well. And then the boys are left in the cold, literally speaking, going from door to door and begging for whatever they want. Okay? So this really means is that sometimes the Amana pushes off the sons together with the daughters. I understand. If she pushes off with the daughters, she can push off the sons and make them beg. So why not solo? So let her do it by herself. Why can she do it solo? Why do you need the daughters in order to do it? So it says a more fascinating answer. Says you know why? Because from daughters she can't demand anything, but from sons she can say demand a ksuva, and when she demands a ksuva she loses her mizonos. So actually, the Amana against the son is weaker because there's an escape hatch by which she loses mizonos. That's how she come out. He has to come out to the daughters and in order to make the sons beg. Because if she attacks the sons frontally, the sons have a retaliatory strength, which is only necessary, but might not be practical, but is there, which is to make her lose her the mizonos altogether if she demands her ksuba. And we have a wild case like this. But sorry, I'm going to open the window because I am poorly. I don't know, you guys stay awake. I can't stay awake.
Now, if it's just mothers and daughters, what about the ksuva there?
The ksuva she gets no matter what. That comes from the estate. The question is she gets mizonos. The mothers and daughters. Yes, she does. But equally, in other words, the daughters don't go beg. Okay? Never, the only time the Amana can force the boys to beg is if the daughters and she piggybacks with them. But otherwise she doesn't force the begging issue. Okay? Okay, so says the Gemara, I'm a loss of Rabbi Shubsai. There was a Amana of Rabbi Shubsai. Havas, she was Mevazah in the Chosim. Now, I'm going to learn that not B'nai Moshe, but like Lieberman. Lieberman has a nice pshat. I like his pshat here. He says she was selling property for too cheap. B'nai Moshe says she was selling too much property, but Lieberman says she was selling for too cheap. So also meant, and they were losing money because she was selling property to raise cash to feed herself, and she was selling for much too cheap. So the sons came, Rabbi Shubsai's sons came, Asil Benoi, Karvan, Rabbi Lozik, and Rabbi Lozik, that's what to do. They said, Man, what should I do for you kids? You're a foolish nation. You're idiots. Now what should they have done? So the Bnei Moshe gives a certain shot that they had a trick they could do, which is true, and they will employ this trick. But it's beyond our capacity to believe that Rabbi Eliezer would have alluded to the trick they could play. Rather, the Lieberman says a very beautiful pshat. He says the pshat is that he told them, you're idiots, why don't you sell yourselves? Why do you let the Almana sell and she undersells? You sell it and give her the Mizonos. You're stam idiots. Right? So, Minachtum, when they left the base in Amrun, they said, let's go ask the scribe. Ksova is a scribe. Let's go ask the scribe, what should we do? In other words, the scribe of the court in Mistama. They asked him, what did your Rebbe have in mind? So the scribe, he was a conniving guy. He was a tricky guy. Amalai said, this is what you guys should do. Yischamon, pretend! Zavdu Minich said you're selling the property off. And of course, if you sell off the property, she won't have any place in which to collect her ksula, right? So va'asya v'taves parna. So she will come in a fright and demand her ksuva. Once she demands the ksuva, what do we say to her? Gotcha! No mizonos anymore, right? That'll save the problem. And that's what they did, and it worked. Besides, eventually, the woman came, the Amona came, and she complained. It should be probably Kavilas. But then she came close to it, and she complained about Rabbi Lezer. Armor late, so he said to her, she took a promise, Yovo, I make curses before me, he said. If I said anything to them about this ruse, what can I do? Umakas prushim nagaba. We had this in Mesaita. This is an eitzah given by a person who seems to be an abstaining, upright member of the community. Really, he's a conniving, dastardly type of fellow. In other words, here the Sefer gave this eitzah to your either sons or stepsons, and that's how they got out of having to give you mazonos. But that was not my intent. My intent was simply that they should sell instead of you. But what the conniving Sefer told them to do is that they should pretend that they're selling the property and thus could coerce you to demand the ksuba, and that way you'd lose mazonos. Oh well, tough luck on her. Rab Chananel, again, the Bnei Moshe's the Pshat, but Lieberman's Shroud is very nice. Rab Chananel, B'Shem Rabbi Zir, B'Shem Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah said, Shneit Volim Amar Chanav, look at us, it's really not our sugi, it's a sugi, and Ksuva is not relevant to us. The two things Chanan said, and halacha is like him, those two things. Shivon Amot, 7 things Amot said, Vein halacha k'moisoi, halacha is not like him. Rabbi Baba Zav Shem Yitzhak ben Chakula said, Kol makom sheyesh aninu, anytime you see in our Mishnah. Amar Shimon says, Choyani, as divrei Admon, I think Admon's correct. Halacha k'Admon, halacha is like Admon except where it's not, which is our Mishnah. We don't pass him like Admon. Okay, we might never pass like for that matter, but that's a sugi for ksubas. Shmuel, now the sugi, I don't know why it's brought down even here. If I was really lazy, I could just erase the rest of the sugi until the Mishnah. The sugi is the sugi in Yevamos, where it's much better expounded. Here, it's far inferior to the sugi in Yevamos, where it appears in the first parak, fourth parak, first halacha. It says Shmuel Marzochlin Bar. Shmuel says you can make an acquisition, I should say bestow an acquisition on a fetus. You can bestow property on a fetus. Okay? Rabbi Lezer says you can't bestow property on a fetus. But he's a big Rabbi Lezer. A mission scene started Rabbi Lezer says, Gershemes, a Ger died. Ubiz Bizu Yisrael as the chos of Jews came and looted his property. And we found out that he's got a son, right? So his daughter was pregnant. His wife was pregnant. So then they have to give back whatever they took. So it goes to the son. So the Gemara asks over there, Yivav says Kashan Shmuel, who says Ein Zachal Ein Reb Lezer says Ein Zachal Ibarim. So the Gemara says, what kind of nonsense is that? This is not shiur. This is Yerusha. The son of the ger inherited. He didn't get it because the father is mizakeh to him, because the father gave it to him as a present, or gave it to him as a kinyan. He got it because he's an heir. So there's no proof of there in any event. Says the Gemara, Hichziru, continuous on over there, where they gave it back. V'acharka to the mother or to trustee until the kid is born. And then the son who's still born to the ger dies in infancy, basically in childbirth within the first 30 days. Or shapila ishto, or for that matter, his wife miscarried, even though she was thought to be pregnant, she miscarried. Hamachlik v'achrona zocha. So the last guy holding on to property acquires property. I mean, the guy holding on to it at the time. Says more why Berishona Zacha Elo, which is there's something wrong with the Gisa here, but why doesn't the first guy get it? In other words, the first guy to grab it, true, he had to relinquish it to the kid when he found that the mother was pregnant. But why now does he not get it back? Says Mar Pasaloi, explain Mishum Yeush, the first guy already gave up. When he gave it up, he gave it up. Does that make sense? When he gave it up,
it was betos or something.
Yeah, it was betos, because Yeush doesn't have to be. There's no such thing. You don't Yesh Kavana. Yesh betos is by definition. You gave up hope. It doesn't matter what false premise, under what false premises you gave up hope. Once you gave up hope, you gave up hope. Says more. Wait a minute. Please understand. Isn't it difficult from this Mishnah or this Brisa also in Shmuel, who holds Mizakal Ubar Kana, right? But so never, even if you hold Mizakal Ubar Kana, so then nobody should acquire it. In other words, as long as the Uber is getting it, as before we gave the answer which you gave for of Yusha, of course. But once the Uber is getting it, so nobody should get it, not to be shown him, not to acquire. So right, says again, I feel Shmuel Lacy please doesn't argue. So no, I feel about even the last guy shouldn't get it because it's given to the Ubar. So therefore, whoever holding on to it as the last should not get it at all because there's a point in which it's given to the Ubar as a gift, and whatever had before that, even the last guy holding out before that should not acquire it. Says more again there, Odin Mishum Yeush. And Achanami theoretically should acquire it. But since the previous owners had acquired it, so therefore previous owners are sitting in it. I mean, previous owners, for sake, look at the Rishonim, the last guys are sitting there, right? So the Mizakal Ubar didn't work because the kid died. The last guys get it because of the principle of Yeush. Okay, so both ultimately it comes out to Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Lez's machlokes, nothing to do with that sugi over there, right? The sugi their machlokes whether they're talking the barim or not. The question of whether ger shemetz b'bizu yisrael and the chasav, it's not a question of mizak l'uber, but a question of Yerusha counterbalanced by Yeush. Not a question of mizak l'uber. The ger is not being mizakeh, he's not being makne to zuber the property, but rather he's bequeathing to his child the property, and therefore the entire parallel is not a parallel whatsoever. Okay? And this again, this Sugi and Bava Basra, I don't know what's brought down here at all. A guy left side, this Yerushalmi is a classic. Oh, this first is a Mishnah, but the Yerushalmi, classic. So actually we should coin the second, the first there, how many laws of thermodynamics are there? Yeah. A few of them. We should have the few laws of Spindel. The first one being the basic Spindel principle, and then the second principle being reasons we don't teach Gemaras to women. Okay, so this will be another one of those second Spindel principle Gemaras. Hiniach body uvados. First, they have to go to the Mishnah. Hiniach body uvados leave sides the daughters. V'tumtum, and a tumtum, of course, we don't know what gender he belongs to. So, there's a lot of property, which means that the girls get fed and the boys inherit. As Chaim so in the cave, the males send to the females and say, "You're not a male, right? So therefore, do you inherit anything? No, go get fed with the females." But you know what the females do? You're not a female. Yeah. Similarly, if the now the truth is, Manavshach, he gets something. He gets whatever's less. In that case, where the chasam he gets whatever's less, either the food amount or the property amount, because the minimum he gets less of the two amounts. Now, vice versa, if there's a chasam muatim, if there's a small amount, right, and a cave so it says chaim, then females push over to the male and say, "You're not one of us," and therefore he has to go and beg. Chaim says, "My son gives birth to a male child. You told me the kid should get $100. The zachar, if the kid gives birth, the kid born is a male, the money gets $100. In the cave, if it's a girl who's born, she's going to need more money, right? So then, the Messiah, she should get $200, right? Yod in the cave, if his wife gives birth to the cave, those Messiah, she gets $200. Im zachar money be in the cave of Messiah. He says, if it's a male, $100. If it's a keva, $200. You're the zachar in the keva, and she gives birth to twins. It's bad luck, right? Hazara noita mana, the male gets $100 in the keva Messiah, and the girl gets $200. Yol do tumtum. What if his wife gave birth to a tumtum? He's in trouble. Eina noita, the tumtum gets nothing because he's neither definitely male nor definitely female.
She gives birth to an androgynous.
Androgynous, yeah, it's a good question. What androgynous? It would be the same. It would seem to be the same thing over here.
A higher position.
Yeah, I don't think so. It would seem to be the same issue. V'imamar said, "Kol ma shetei lishti yito." If he said, "No matter what my wife gives birth to, let them get the money," I raise yito, the kid gets the money. Ve'ensham yoresh shalahu. Now let's talk about it as a gift off the top, without any, without before inheritance, right? If he's the only heir, of course he inherits everything. Obviously, if this child who's born is the only heir of the father, then of course he inherits whatever there is. Okay, ready, guys? Tani, one of these geschmack gemaras. Somebody says, if somebody notifies me, my wife gave birth to a male, the messenger will get $200. Yoda Zachar, and then the Messiah, which gives birth to a birth, then the messenger gives birth to a male, the messenger gets $200. In the cave it says that my wife gives birth to an akeva, then Mona should be $100. Yod in the cave, if the girl's born, Noito Mona gets $100, right? Zachar in the cave, what if he could, he's told that his wife gave birth to both a male and a female? So how much should these two children get all together? What? 300, right? 200 from 100 other. No! Ain't lo elamana. There's only $100 to $50 each. $100 divided between two of them. Why? Because I remember Bikvat Sagas Nekeva Simcha Zachar. The anguish over having given birth to a daughter cancels out the joy of having given birth to a son. Alright, very for this Gemara, right? So this Gemara, we have not seen anything like this before. It's certainly not in the Bavli. But nevertheless, Rabbi Mona says that the anguish of having given birth to a daughter outweighs the happiness of having given birth to a son, and therefore he doesn't give the the extra $200. He only gives $100 among the two kids to be split up equally. Okay? Says not politically correct Gemara. How long gimel? Masnis. You left adult sons and minor sons. Now, the adult sons, the adult boys are cultivating the property. Obviously, it's the estate. The estate is being cultivated. So, if they cultivate the property, whatever cultivation they do, whatever enhancement they do, they split 50-50. Why? Because they're working on what? The estate. It's not yet divided up. So even though they are the ones working and the Ketanim are in school, wherever they are, nevertheless, the enhancement is split up 50-50. Logical, right? Okay? V'imar, they said, no. If the Gedolim gave notice, they certainly said, look what our father left us. See, what we're going to invest now is property which is going to us in the division. We haven't divided yet, but you should know this property which is going to us because it's been designated to us, right? So in that case, if they notified, they made this notification. We're going to do with that which we're going to get, and we're going to consume it ourselves. Whatever advancement they get enhancement they make for themselves. So to a woman, she enhances the property. So she enhances there's a woman who what? Who inherits. I don't know why I put the woman. Anyway, some woman inherits. Same idea. She does it for both her and whoever else inherits. Maybe it's two women. I don't know. Imam, she said, oh, it's a wife. She must be an apotropos. She's working on behalf of the Yerushalmi. So whatever she does is distributed equally. Imam, she said, my father, my husband left me this as my personal property. I'm going to do geschäft, I'm going to do business with it and eat it myself. Then the enhancement goes to her and her alone. Says my Rabbi Law said, Im Amru, where do the brothers are going to make this pronouncement, this disclaimer, that whatever work they're doing for themselves, be based in. They're doing in court. There's a big machlokes between the Rishonim, whether we paskin like this Yerushalmi, that's got to be in court. Or Rashbam says, no, in front of Adam suffices, it doesn't have to actually be in court. Then the other Rishonim say, the Yerushalmi says, it's okay, it probably doesn't, so we don't have to go by that. The Bei Rabbi Yana said, Afilu Irne. Now, some people, the Rashbam gives Afilu Adam, means that, which is like the Rashbam. They don't have to actually notify in front of Basin, all you have to notify in front of is Eidim, in front of witnesses, which like the Rashbam says. However, the Pashim Shan, as Yerushalmi, most of Pashim say, even if the father left the older brothers a bucket, and they say, the enhancement we're making the property is with our bucket. Now, they might not actually be just using the bucket, but the bottom line is they've sort of noticed that they're working for themselves. So therefore, the enhancements, they're not going to split up 50-50. And they have a right to say, whatever extra work we did with our bucket. I guess we could prove that that's not correct if we went to the trouble, perhaps. So we have to, the Lamaisa, they have the right to say, we're working with our bucket extra, that should not go 50-50. Says the Gemara, Ram Afilu Sal, even a basket, Afilu Kurdom, if they could identify something specific left them by their father, they could say, we're working with that in order to make more money. Tanya Rebbe said, Afilu Machat, even a needle, Afilu Kavtzavit puzzle, even something which is sealed with a sealed container. Everybody goes crazy. What's the name of something sealed by a sealed container? Nobody has a good shot in it, however. So, in other words, whatever minimal thing the far left, they can claim they're working at the Nansat and the profits are based on that and go to that.
It's a sealed container, it's useless. You're not using it.
No, there must be something inside it. Right, there must be something inside it.
But you're not able to get to it because...
You want to say even if it's something which is so useless?
Yeah, you will use it, but you can't use it.
Interesting. Could be. It might be a nice shot. Okay, by the way, everybody, I must point out, at this point we have made a siyum on Lieberman. This is where Lieberman is done. The Escorial manuscript does not get to the end of Bava Basra. It's Bava Kama, Bava Tzia, and actually not to be in Bava Kama either. But that's it. Only up to here. Rest of Shas, let's do it without Lieberman. Okay, says Gemara. You guys look shattered. Sorry, guys. Says further. Anachina said, interesting, so there's a parallel story in the Bavli, and we had a parallel story, I think in Yerushalmi at some point, I don't remember where, but probably Kedushin. Hamesis b'no b'bayis, if you marry up your son in your house, zocha b'bayis, then your son gets the house. Does anybody remember something vaguely like this? You set up a chuppah in a house, so the house goes on with the chuppah. That's why we make chuppahs in hotels and in halls. So they don't acquire your house because you made it your child's chuppah at home. Your home goes.
What if it's someone else's home?
You can't give it. It's only your own home. Okay, but that's what make it outside the home. Says what I said, but buy some dollars, only the house, not the furniture. Furniture you get to keep. You got to move it out of the house, but you get to keep the furniture. Okay. Our friend Rabbi Law, Chilik Etzatrakli Benola Ben Beno. He had a large hall. He divided it in half, and he gave. Although he made the chuppah in the hall, he didn't mean to give the whole hall to his son. He only gave the half where the chuppah was to his son. After another shot. Okay. Says Rabbi Chagai for. Okay. Rabbi Chagai asked, Rabbi Yossi Haisa Chupasa Bekito. His chuppah was in the chuppah room. Vaslo I say betraklin, but the meal was in the ballroom. So now, in other words, the chuppah's in one room and the meal's in the other room. Right, and the Kito was the small room, the traklin was the big room. So which one does he get? Either one, neither of them. Which one does he get? Amar Leisi said, Chamele Mafka. Nobody understands what this line means. Anybody can interpret this line any way they want. Chamele Mafka means see him remove it. Now, the question is, what do you mean? See him remove it. Let him remove himself from the traklin and give him the traklin to his son from the big room and give the big room to the son. So, I mean, Chamele Mafka, that see if to see that he moved the chuppah from the big room to he moved the chasna from the chuppah room to another room, which means he only wants to give that room to his son. What? I'm sorry. You're right. That the Pnei Moshe says Chamei Mafka. I forgot. Our Gemara says Chamei Leis Mafka. Leis Chamei Mafka. So there are all different interpretations here. It seems like the best interpretation is, didn't you see that he moved the chuppah? And since he removed the chuppah, it means that he removed the chuppah from the big room and put the chuppah in the hall. So this we see that he didn't want to give him the big room. All he wanted to give him was the hall. That seems to be the pshat here. Okay, Leis Chamei Mafka. Did you see him remove the chuppah from the big room to the hall? That means he wants to give him the small room, not the big room. Okay. Says the Gemara, this is going back to our Mishnah. If you have an estate and the Gedolim are running roughshod over the estate, they divide it up in order for the advantage of the children, not the advantage of adults. That's true. What if the Ketanim got up and they found something extra, and they made him b'chon and said, "Well, this should go to us as well." And yet the adult children want to keep it themselves. Rabbi Avo says the adult children have to take an oath that they actually made this enhancement for their own property, not for the common estate. Said, anytime you want to take money away from your friend, you got to bring the proof, except for this case. In this case, the adult children have to bring a proof that what they made, the money they made out of their own part of the estate, not the part of the estate which was common to both of them. It's interesting because we assume the default assumption is the estate is always a joint or a thing. For 3 generations, children are considered to be partners by default. The assumption is that they're default. Whereas estates are slow to divide up. It can go 3 generations before an estate is divided up. And until that time, all the heirs to the estate divide everything up equally, proportionally. And to assume that everybody is working on behalf of the estate unless they give notice that they're not. So it actually is a halachic corporation. Those are decided to split up and could be even beyond up to 3 generations. Okay? That's a fascinating thing. It's on the Bavli. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Barbun, I guess from Yosef Barbun, not Rabbi Hilgard, no, I can't pass this way as well. Rabbi said, Bench near a chol b'chayei aviv. What if the son went off and started his own corporation during his father's lifetime? Then after his death, he doesn't have to say, I'm going off on my own. He doesn't have to come to base and say anything because we assume they continue the same path he took during his father's lifetime. And we have a couple of stories like this. A certain individual, he became either a barber or a sefer. I know which one of the two is apparent here. So his children want to split up with him. They want to say whatever he was working as a barber, as a slaver, is working for the estate, right? So the story came from Rabbi Ami. Omar said, this is what we say. Other Shemot Metzia, if a father of a certain individual didn't get split up the estate and he found him at Sia, his brothers split it up with him? Of course not. He personally found him at Sia. So to your brother who was personally working for himself, he doesn't have to split that up with you. Okay? Similar. Is that clear?
Was he healing for his halacha from his state?
I guess not. I guess the Kalim, at least he contended. Which he contended the Kalim were not from his estate. So they probably didn't believe him. They wanted to take a shiur. And the Rabbi Ami Pasuk, was Rabbi Ami here, who said he doesn't have to take a shiur. We believe him when he says that it actually is. Okay, that it was on his own. Chamer Nash, another case. Chamer Nash, he went out to be a broker. His brothers want to split up with him. So the case came from Rabbi Ami. Obviously said, fascinating response. Said, do we say, if one brother became abandoned and made money that way, do the other brothers may have to split up with him? So I guess we're comparing brokerage to banditry. Okay? That shall remain without comment. But whatever he made for himself. Rabbi Horanya. Achoy Rabbi Shmuel bar Suschite, B'achoy Mifli. His brother wanted to split with him. So he said, Alexandre, my Alexandrian brother, it's not clear, maybe their name was Alexandra, whatever. He said, Yod at the Shava Kabuna Bain, do you not know that our father left me $2,000 capital, which I myself am using, which this is from my own funds, we don't divide up this. Okay? Finally, a woman who's working on behalf of the assignment, she also is working on behalf of everybody unless she comes and tells people that she's not. Rabbi Lord says, I'm a Rabbi Basin. Where she has to say she's not working on behalf of the commonweal, she has to come and say that in Basin that she's working on her own, not working for everybody else. Okay, we'll stop here for this evening. I'm Kaf Chesson base at the top. Today's blot, my boy, I finally got my Gerah Luach this past week. I have an extra one if anybody wants it. Yeah, today is officially, what's today's date? January what? January 17th. Today's official blot is Shavuos Chav Gimel. And we have, as of tonight, how many blot left in Bava Basra? 5. So we're 28 blot behind as of tonight.